committee, setting the vision statement for the future for 2045. So it's the long-range plan, as well as the zoning code ordinance. So we're working on two different documents that need to be updated. On the screen, it shows some of the age of participants, as well as the visits to the website. So in that first phase of engagement, some of the themes that came up were affordable housing, transportation and infrastructure, preservation of community character, placemaking, arts and culture, and vibrant public spaces. There were concerns about safety. These can both be concerns about crime or perceived perception of safety and danger. That was around train stations specifically that I heard. Infrastructure, maintenance, keeping up with the roads, repairing bike lanes, things like that. Economic development, a lot of those comments came up referencing downtown specifically. And then environmental sustainability came up quite a bit across the board through all the different types of engagement. Lastly, community engagement and representation, that was pretty strong, that the community still wants to be involved in 2045 and beyond. So those are the things that came up that have guided the plan and are influencing the goals we have now and the vision. So here's a little bit more of what we heard specifically from people when it comes to transportation. These came from the community survey and different comments that were left in the office hours as well. People deeply concerned about lack of affordable housing for young families. People wanting to put their roots down and buy a home here can't. Public transportation in Evanston is flawed in every way imaginable. This is something from the survey. Grade level parking lots should be replaced because of terrible lane use that they are. Urban design should be the top priority for the city, but the apex of urban planning policy that everything should fall under. So these are some of the direct content and concepts we heard, and then how we've heard about the concerns and come up with the things that we have. There's a desire for improved infrastructure, economic growth, like I said before, safer streets, affordable housing, and a variety of housing, based on some of those comments you just heard me read off. There's also some more about loving to see more native plants in parks, more commitment to economic diversity in our community, and people reflecting on the past, saying, I came to Evanston when I was a lot younger, and I felt like back then downtown area was more vibrant and had more shops to explore with my friends. So a lot of comments about revitalizing downtown and making it more vibrant. As well as pedestrian-friendly spaces, public spaces, integrating arts and culture, integration with Northwestern University as well, and then historic preservation should be prioritized, sustainable development in an inclusive city. We also heard one challenge in Evanston is that people move to our city in order to buy a house they can afford. Landlords can't provide affordable rent prices because they have to pay rent taxes, so it's just a cycle that people feel like they can't put roots here when they want to. I've had my business, I've had to move my business because of drastic rent increase. Personally, I know a lot of business owners that have given up on Evanston. So a little pessimistic, concerning, but also things we need to hear and process, and then look at data and see what the data says as well, to see how we can improve on that and make Evanston a place where people can settle and have a high quality of life. Housing is attainable, and they can stay here. Be born here, stay here, raise their family here. And the word cloud on the right side shows the bigger the word is, the more it came up in engagement. So affordable, safe, diverse, and housing are some of the most prominent words that came up. So as mentioned earlier, in phase one we had a visioning workshop. During that workshop we did a few different scenarios, had some storytelling activities based on trend cards for trends that we'll face in from now to 2045. And at the end of that, pulled together all of the ideas and created this vision. So in 2045, Evanston will be a vibrant, resilient, welcoming community for all. Evanston celebrates its diversity through our arts, culture, history, and neighborhoods. Steady growth in our local circular economy cultivates opportunities close to home while achieving ambitious climate action. Our abundant access to parks and open spaces promotes well-being and extensive housing options, making living in Evanston safe and attainable. Evanston's neighborhoods are connected through a robust network of transit, bike, and pedestrian options. We achieve this vision through proactive planning, community collaboration, and bold action. So this is the vision, this is what we want to get to, even though it might not feel like this right now, that is why we're setting it for 2045. So you have to have a bold vision if you want to be able to achieve it, and that's what we'll be doing with the comprehensive plan and the zoning code. Do you all have thoughts or any reflection on the vision? Feel like anything's missing? Does it cover what you'd like to see?
Well, actually, I think what I don't see is that we will create a governance structure that would support this. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a government administration and employee base that doesn't have the ability to carry this forward, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So one of the things probably should be to look to what kind of a government structure, what kind of personnel you need, the qualities of the people, the qualifications of the people. That would be actually the people that are making this happen.
Right.
Right? So that's an HR thing.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, I would say an incentive structure to make that happen. Like employees or governance has to have maybe an incentive or incentivize the behavior we want. I don't know how that's going to be here, but.
And even if it can't fit into the vision itself, it can fit into the plan for sure. That can be highlighted. It's hard to encompass everything in the vision without making it touch on everything, but I totally understand what you're saying. Why it's important.
I think the word celebrates is where I'm kind of stuck.
You're stuck.
Because I think that it's great to celebrate our arts, culture, history, and neighborhoods, but I think there needs to be something active and
like a stronger verb.
We have boards, committees, and commissions that all have different purviews. In the round table, that the environmental group wants, environmental justice embedded at all stages of the process. And I think personally, I would like to see preservation too. That way, we're not just celebrating it, but we're also helping, in ways that it could be with affordable housing or climate action, resiliency,
right.
Different.
Yeah, something beyond.
But I know you can't get it all in a goal statement.
No, we're trying. And if not in the vision, I'll share the goals as well, and we can talk about those. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So here, is there a way to click this spot? I'm trying to move this up. Okay. Okay, so just went through the vision. I showed you earlier public engagement themes, how those fed into that vision. So it has some of those keywords that were brought up: sustainability, economy, preservation, historic. Those words are in there. So then that led us to these goal statements. These are also still, we're getting input on these, validating the ideas that we heard in phase 1 in this phase 2 of engagement. So phase 2 of engagement has kicked off. We're doing pop-up events in the community this week. The 18th, we're going to downtown Summer Sounds, and we'll have boards getting feedback on the vision and also on these goal statements. So these goal statements will be used throughout the plan. Create healthy community applies to the community, but then also the built environment, but also the people in the community. Establish a strong local economy. Protecting natural resources. I think we've had feedback on that already, that it wants to be changed to prioritize climate action or something like that. Or prioritize environmental sustainability, I think is what that's changing to. So things are in flux right now. We're still drafting. Celebrate art and culture, which you might have some comments about the celebrate, so I'm happy to talk about that as well. Increase housing diversity and creating equitable opportunities for all. So the increasing housing diversity, that housing and affordable housing has come up quite a bit throughout the engagement in phase 1. This one is also multifaceted. Increasing the housing supply would help with lessening the demand and also affect affordability and attainability, but we're also focused on suitable housing too. So it's encompassing a lot of things in that one. Do you all support these goal statements? Do you feel like something's missing? Anything need to be
prior slide, the goal statement or the vision statement, they say we achieve this vision. Who's this from the point of view of like we, the city of Evanston government, we, like who's we, the consultants, like who's the
So it is a community-driven plan, and it's based on community input. So the we, in my mind, is the community we, like the city of Evanston, not necessarily government city of Evanston, but the city staff and residents and
all the above, all
yeah.
So what you're saying is you're going to empower the population to be more in charge of their own destiny.
Absolutely, and that's why we want to reach out to them and engage them to hear their ideas, because without the direction from the people, what is the plan for? It would just be staff writing a plan for themselves.
But if I say I want to do this, and staff says no, then we'll go around.
Well, so if you say you want to do this, you would hopefully tell us in that board meeting, the survey, these pop-up events, and then it'd be incorporated into these goals. So we're trying to hear from everyone and get their ideas. That's why public engagement is so important. We're not just doing this to check a box. We're doing it to hear from people and make sure the plan reflects their needs, but also making sure we're hearing from a diversity of people and have a diversity of tools that we're using to engage people at all different levels. Yesterday we were at a gelato place, and we went to a concert, so we're hearing from different people who have different perspectives. So it's not just one group we're going to and only taking their ideas.
How does the funding work? Is there something that using civics classes or just high school in general?
Yeah, so we have contacts with the high school. One of them we had 2 youth participants at the visioning workshop, and one of them is involved in the civics class, and we would love to work with them to get into the classes. I think they already visited classes prior to me starting on this project, so that's in the first phase, but we would love to continue that, not just one checkpoint, but
It
continue.
seems like a key demographic, because if you're planning for 2045, that's the group that you're hoping will be here, still buying a house and still being here in Evanston.
Exactly.
So that's, like...
Yeah. That's,
Wow. Right.
That's the case everywhere. Yeah, engage the youth, because this is who the plan is for. So, any other comments, questions, comments on the goals? Okay. Oops, sorry. So the first goal, fostering a healthy community. We strive to build a vibrant, inclusive community that supports holistic health of its residents. Doing that through ensuring equitable access to housing and essential amenities, grocery stores, parks, recreation, hospitals. So thinking of wellness and health broader than just a hospital, broader than just your physical health. Promoting safety, designing walkable neighborhoods, well-lit streets, ample sidewalks, designated bike lanes, encouraging active transportation. We'll also do that by enhancing aesthetics of built environment, thoughtful design, green space preservation, and natural landscapes, creating visually pleasing, inspiring places for people to live, work, and play. So although it's a very walkable community already, as we've seen from our preliminary findings, how do we improve that more and build upon it? Like, just because there's bike lanes, it's like, let's build on it. Are there gaps we can connect? Are there streets that need more street trees, lighting, things that are mentioned here? So this can fall into multiple chapters of the plan: land use, housing, parks and open space. It touches on a lot of different parts of the plan, but this is what the goal statement is, just a deeper dive into that. Questions?
Yeah, well, where I live, on the street I live, most of the street doesn't have sidewalks.
So that's an equity thing too, because it's like some parts of the town, sidewalks are great, they're wide, I see people walking, but it's not across the board.
Not where I live.
Yeah.
I think in 2045, probably still won't have sidewalks.
Street lighting. So if you look at the historic districts, they all have the nice Talmadge cast iron street lamps. And then some neighborhoods have the more like highway security lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's like, why can't they have the same aesthetic as everyone else in the city? Or is it, you know, is it a more neighborhood-driven thing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, where it says preserve natural landscapes, now, for instance, that's one thing that disappears very quickly. So is there something in this present plan that says that today, in order for us to have that in 2045, we have to set it aside today before they turn into a, I don't know, what's something, a
Just
parking lot.
Yeah. Preserve the
Right,
natural
so,
landscape now,
yeah.
so it's not developed.
How do you put that kind of thing into a 2045 thing without saying that if we don't do it today, it won't be a question in 2045? So I see a 20. So this is a projection of where we want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and from where we are right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I just don't have a vision.
Yeah. I'll say it's hard. It's very, very high level. So the detail you want and are asking for will be in the plan. The way I've already started to lay this out internally is different chapters. Every chapter is going to have, like, either what you said could be explained in a narrative or it could be explained with the data. So every chapter will have analysis that shows here's what it is now. Whether that's like, let's have a map and show all of the vacant land, let's have a map and show all of the natural areas. So that's the plan for what we'll show. Okay. And then we can explain the importance and the why, like why this matters.
And just so everyone to clarify, these are very high level aspirational. These are goals, right? So goals inform policy statements. So policy statements are, you're talking about the city government structure, they are saying these are our internal policies that will achieve this goal. Policy statements inform initiatives or strategies that might be very specific, that might say, you know, specific areas that should be considered for preservation. It could be the level of granularity that it could get to. But they just haven't gotten there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But we will.
I haven't had a chance to talk yet. Hi. So where it says enhancing the aesthetics of the built environment, you know, I feel about that a little bit maybe the way Carl felt about celebrating. It's a little bit
not strong enough.
It's a little bit kind of simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about here is more than just aesthetics. Not that aesthetics are not important, but if we're talking about the holistic health, there's more to making the built environment a place where you want to be that goes beyond aesthetics. Now, you know, maybe you're going to get into that in the detail, but I fear that if we use these kinds of words that treat this stuff as kind of shallow, then the policies that come next will also kind of not really take it
where it needs to be.
That it needs to go.
Yeah, so we start with the goals this way so we can get feedback to make sure we're going in the right direction. To elaborate on the aesthetics common in the built environment, which is what this whole plan is about. This section would have recommendations for wayfinding, gateway features, street, like how street corners are treated. It would involve street furniture, street trees, building typology. So there will be a level of detail that we'll get to, I think, what you're wanting, but...
Well, it also, later it says creating visually pleasing. You know, there's like a lot of emphasis here on the visual, whereas we do not experience the built environment just with our eyes. So I would say just enhancing the built environment. I'm not worried that much about specifying the aesthetics.
Okay.
And sort of think about proportion and massing. And, you know, there are other aspects of the built environment. There's sound.
Yeah.
There's, you know, smells. There's, you know, kind of microclimates that buildings create, little wind eddies around tall buildings. And so, if we're trying to think about inspiring places, pleasing and inspiring places, I think you can just leave it at that and not.
So the edit there is sticking out.
I think if health is kind of the theme of this,
Right.
what I'm thinking is the Driehaus Foundation did this conference recently where they talked about being in an environment with the proportions and whatnot, and actually leads to mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the continuity of a community and being able to stay in that community and live in that community leads to mental health
Yeah.
and better, communities that way. And I
Right.
think that is the direction I think that we would like to go, right?
Right. As opposed to kind of falling back on this kind of sense that the built environment and these things is kind of there to be just sort of like nice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sort of make you feel good.
Yeah.
It's more than that for those of us who are around the table.
Yeah.
So I would say something beyond celebrates would be sort of like activated. Like actually get it, get the arts and culture in this city working for us, doing really important work. And stripping out the assumptions of aesthetics and visual and stuff and kind of challenging us to go a little deeper.
Are you getting just to mentally and physically healthy?
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Right.
that.
Yeah. Right.
Healthy.
Right. So I hope that I'm being clear. I don't want to take too much time.
No, that totally makes sense.
We
And
have
it's
a
more,
bunch of
it's
things.
a feeling thing too about like what you're saying about massing and like what would make me feel safe walking by a building versus what looks nice. Like
Right.
it's not just the looks. And when Mitchell comes, he'll have some examples of projects he's worked on. This generation is struggling a lot with anxiety and loneliness. So how can we use public spaces to help with that and like to draw people and create gathering spaces as well? And it doesn't have to be that public space doesn't have to mean a park necessarily. That's where our brain goes, but it's like public space could be the sidewalk. That could be like where are these places for people to encounter each other and help them tie in with the mental health as well. So
I just wanted to add,
yeah.
actually, totally agree with what you guys said, that the built environment isn't just about aesthetics, it's also like history too, which we always talk about. And I would like to see something, and maybe this is more granular, or maybe it's in the goal statement about like preserving, like striving to preserve these old buildings. Like there's a lot of talk about different buildings, like the Noyes Cultural Center, this building, different Harley Park, and different assets that we have that I think people sometimes, if we look at 2045 or whatever, I'd love to see these preserved, restored, repurposed or whatever, rather than demoed and put like a new build up, which I think sometimes the direction is going that way. It's too expensive. Rather than thinking about like sustainability of preserving a building rather than like all the new materials, like it is greener. I don't know how to incorporate that, but
maybe policy, but anything you share.
Something about history, like this is again talking about built environment and aesthetics, and built environment is just more significant than just the aesthetics. It's the history and the character and all the other things that we talk
I saw
about.
that on a slide earlier about preserving the cultural identity in this.
Yeah, that was something that came up in the engagement, but it's not here in these goals. I didn't actually see that. That we've only looked at this one, foster healthy community, so far, but I didn't see it in any of them. So, holistic health, it includes sort of knowing who you are, where you came from, your identity, and that is part of what historic preservation is trying to do, is kind of create a link between the now and the past and the future, right? Because the built environment is the kind of artifact of people that lived here before. So you connect. Preservation is a form of building fabric and networks and connectivity. If you're talking about people who are lonely, we're here doing the work of trying to make people feel like they belong. And so that so then that goes again beyond aesthetics and visually pleasing neighbors are only a slice of the larger like world that people like us are trying to foster.
Yeah. Yeah, I receive all that. You can definitely highlight like sense of place and belonging and like what would make someone proud to be from here, but
Right.
it's different from anywhere else.
Right, right. Where do you come from? Who are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Who is that person over there, and how are we going to have a dialogue? And it happens through understanding our history and valuing that.
To the next. So establishing a strong local economy, we hope to aspire to build a prosperous, inclusive community where economic vitality and quality is woven into and benefits all by supporting local businesses, attracting new industries, promoting workforce development initiatives to stimulate growth, encouraging entrepreneurial endeavors, small business development through accessible resources, training programs, and financial incentives, and revitalizing and supporting downtown and other business districts to create thriving hubs of commerce and culture, characterized by a mix of retail, dining, entertainment, and office spaces. So this one has an economic development focus, but as well as we'll have to touch on it in the land use chapter where we can go through land use categories and show the future land use map, as well as arts and culture because that's tied into all of this throughout the city.
So is arts and culture, in your mind, entertainment? Is
No.
that where arts and culture, I mean, why characterized by a mix of retail, dining, entertainment, arts and culture, office spaces, and arts and culture?
So what's come up with the brainstorming has been why not have it arts, culture, and entertainment? So some people have lumped all three together. Arts and culture we plan on having its own chapter because it's significant in its own right. But it can be entertainment. In my mind, that would limit, that makes me think of performing art and theater and not just other types of art.
Yeah, so I mean, I would suggest just putting arts and culture in there since it's part of the mixture.
Mm-hmm.
The other word that I hooked onto is revitalizing. That literally means bringing life back. Like that's actually what the word means, right? To revitalize is to bring energy back into a place, right? Which is directly connected to our history. I mean, the assumption is it used to have vitality, and it doesn't anymore. So that's a version of historic preservation practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Get it to what it once was.
That's an interesting thing that you say, because I think there's two different things to see. My understanding from reading the findings is that people view the downtown one way, and then they view the small neighborhood districts a completely different way. And I think that they're more driven to those smaller neighborhood districts, like on Noyes Street, Central, Greenwood, Dexter Dodge, Church and Dodge,
Right.
Webster Mile, because of the neighborhood feel, and they have a lot more long-standing established businesses, that lead to that arts and culture. That's I think the culture part, and that we would like that to stay. And there's,
Neighborhood spaces.
Right, and to potentially use that as the springboard for the revitalization. We already have a kernel of vitality. We just need to let it grow.
Mm-hmm. But we're back to identity again.
Mm-hmm.
What is special about who we are?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like somehow we can kind of sprinkle this stuff into
All of the goals.
these goals just a little bit more, and in that way hope to kind of make sure that it's in the policies that come next. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry if I'm citing, but the National Trust for Historic Preservation in 2014 did a study called Older, Smaller, Better.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did a study of 50 cities throughout the country and what was it that was driving people to certain business districts. And they did cell phone data, where people were driven, and it was younger people that were driven to places that had an identity. That had
Authentic.
Yeah, that was authentic.
Authenticity.
You know, so it wasn't like going to a AMC movie theater, big on that. So, you know, it's like, but, you know, they'd rather go to like Dave's Rock Shop or, you know, somewhere that's quirky and Adamson.
Absolutely.
So that's, you know, I would just encourage you to go back through and kind of give it a little bit of a arts and culture thing. Somebody else want to talk?
I've been talking a lot.
But we have a few
But
more
I
goals.
think you can tie in reuse in all of this too.
Yeah.
All these downtowns and big buildings that might or may not be used. And
Yeah.
reuse of any one of these is really key.
Yeah, we've gotten direction from the city staff and the mayor to be bold with our ideas. So as we generate ideas, downtown specifically, because downtowns across the country had a dip during the pandemic, it's how do we use that space? And people are also not going back to office, so can we convert office buildings to retail? Can we convert it to residential? What does that look like?
I think you just look at the history of our city. We've had many iterations over time. You know, we at one point we were this strong small business district where people would come from out of state to, you know, come before a Old Orchard Mall. We were a corporation city. You know, we had Nabisco and Rust-Oleum, and, you know, so we've been able to bounce back. And
Yeah.
so I think we just have to find that next whatever it is.
Yeah.
It says promote workforce development initiatives to stimulate job growth. I don't understand.
I would say this came from the visioning workshop. We talked a lot about trends and about people migrating to the area because of climate change migration, but locals wanting to hire local and train people here for the jobs that are here. So we don't want to just get talent from outside of state. We want to have workforce training here for local students, whoever, to get into the jobs that are here.
So, promoting workforce development initiative to stimulate employment growth or job growth. We haven't much of a record of that here that I know of. But anyway, it's just interesting that it's there.
Yeah, we can massage the
So
language.
if we're,
Yeah.
I was going to say, Charles, you're going to like the next
I
one.
keep getting this idea, if we're promoting workforce development and we're talking about reusing buildings, it would be great to have some kind of historic trades program so that we can then have local talent that can then reuse the buildings we have in town.
Yes, and that would be a bold idea, and that would be in the plan, and we would get feedback from that,
So here's one.
from the community.
Right now, I think something like 80% of people who work for the city, you know, civics.
Right.
So maybe one initiative would be to make that more local people would actually work for the city. And they would cash their check in Evanston instead of wherever else, instead of people live. And would be not only in the long run better employees because they live 10 minutes away,
Right.
but also they would be contributing to the local economy because they'd be, like I
Yeah,
said,
living
cashing
here.
their check there.
Yeah. A lot of cities aren't set up that way.
Of course, I think we should keep going.
Yeah,
I'm
for
a
sure.
little concerned about the time.
For sure. Moving right along, protecting natural resources, we strive to actively preserve our natural environment for the benefit of current and future generations. Conserving the lakefront and beaches through sustainable management practices, maintaining water quality, supporting biodiversity, providing public access for recreation and enjoyment. Enhancing and expanding parks and open space to ensure they serve as a vital asset for the community, promoting physical activity, mental well-being, and ecological balance. Protecting ecologically sensitive areas by implementing conservation strategies, preventing habitat destruction, promoting biodiversity to maintain healthy ecosystems. And that kind of ties back to what we were mentioning earlier about protecting natural landscapes. Comments, questions, concerns? Any other things we should sprinkle in here?
That's a nice statement. But you're still missing the part. Stopping right now. Preserve it today. And so you say, well, you know, you want to do all this.
Not
today.
not in the future. Like
Right
create that
now.
urgency.
Right now. Right.
Yeah.
It's an urgent thing. It's like,
Yeah.
because I won't be here 45 to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it today. Okay. Put that in there. I will.
All right, moving to the next one, celebrating arts and culture. We aim to honor our history, celebrate our diversity, foster a thriving cultural landscape for all by preserving and restoring historic buildings, to maintain Evanston's architectural heritage and connect our residents to our shared past, supporting diverse cultural expressions and events through that reflect the rich culture, tapestry, and unique identity of our community, developing vibrant public spaces with impactful public art where people can gather, interact, and engage with cultural and artistic activities that inspire creativity, foster community pride, and attract visitors. So this one might have some of the things that we talked in the other goal statements that were missing, but we wanted to talk here about events and expressions. Those are kind of the things where it's like you feel it doesn't have to. Public art doesn't always have to be a mural. Like, unpopular belief. Like, a lot of people just focus on the visual, kind of like what you were saying earlier. It doesn't have to be just the building. Like, if it can be the events, it can be the people, the culture is the people.
Yeah, so back to the we thing, who we are, it's like, if we say that we will establish a system that will do all that. The we is like, it's like counting that we is, but that we haven't done much so far.
The aim is to make it inclusive, but if you don't feel like you're a part of the we, then that's
I just want to make sure that the we has the power, the ability, the will, the desire to do those things. So that's why the we becomes important, because we aim to, and I don't even like the aim to. I like more concrete. We will, we shall, we will.
Maybe preserving and restoring is almost setting too high of a bar, because I think that some of the buildings aren't going to necessarily be restored back to a certain time. I think we're trying to just rehabilitate or reuse the existing building style.
So I think we need to give her
Yeah.
context.
So let me just give. No, you're right. You're totally right. Just the context for anybody who doesn't understand where Carl is going with this, or I think where you were going.
Yeah.
There's rehabilitation, there's restoration, there's a few others. So
Refurbish.
Well, there's 4 these are technical words.
Right.
And restoring is a technical word, and that's not the word that we would necessarily use.
That's not a goal that this group has.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, restoring is a treatment that could be done, but that's one of 4. And I think we work towards rehabilitation more than restoration.
Mm-hmm.
There's reconstruction, there's restoration. I don't know whether you guys use this word, restore, the way we understand it to be, or whether you recognize that that's a technical preservation word.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to kind of let's just say someone has a own farmhouse and they want to, make sure that their family can, continue to live there. So they're going to put a, fresh coat of paint on. They're going to probably do some work on it. That's rehabilitation.
Yes, I understand.
But, so someone that's on a lake, a mansion that wants to make sure that they're going to make sure it's to the T, the way it was designed by a high-style architect, and restore it to that period.
That's right.
That's restoration.
And that's for the properties are identified for historic districts based on historic significance. I understand.
Which I think gets into an equity issue, because we want to make sure that people that live that are in neighborhoods that don't have high-style architecture have an ability to stay in their house and have the resources or incentive programs to help with that.
Right. So it's not about insisting that they restore their property. It's about maintaining what parts of the building's environment that are special. So the question, of course, is what parts of the buildings are special and how do they get protected?
Yeah.
And what else can you do in that? So that's what we talk about.
Yep.
That's our thing. So I would not say preserving and restoring historic buildings. I would say something else. Protecting historic buildings or something that is.
But I'll tell you, I've been working on restoring a garden,
Yeah.
and I'm not restoring it.
Right.
But when I talk to people and I send out and I request money and stuff, if I use other words,
Yeah.
it gets very confusing. So it depends on who the audience is.
Right.
Right.
We would not
Right.
use that term, but if we're talking to the general public, unless you're going to educate them about the four.
Right, well, that's why I had to like pause and kind of give some context, which, most of the people reading this are not going to have that context, but I think if
Right.
you're coming to us and asking us what we think,
Mhm.
I think that there are other words that could be used here about what our goal is for historic buildings, and which isn't going to
Always be
be
restored.
perceived as
Yeah.
requiring this very high level of treatment.
There could be some education embedded in this if you really think that it's worth it to have the term fully communicated. That you could.
I mean, yeah. I mean, is there another word that we could use? I mean, the words that I'm hearing very often is adaptive reuse. Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's actually better than historic preservation, to be honest with you, in many cases. Because we want our buildings to be alive. So we want them to be used. We don't want them sitting there preserved in amber.
Yeah.
That's
We can edit that.
And the next group you talk to is going to go.
Yeah, that's for them to sort through all the different things that they're getting. But one of the perception of this commission and preservation in general is that we're going to require people to do absolutely everything. And that's not actually the reality.
And that's great that you said about education though too, like education both ways, like educating the community, but like also hearing from them of like what their struggles are, what their concerns are, but educating about like here's our role and here's what we're doing as a community. Like,
But this is part of our way of, it's one way to educate the public is
Absolutely.
to use the right words and to not create the perception of a really high standard when that standard doesn't exist.
And the community,
And I like that equity
the
piece,
community needs to educate us
Right.
on what they see as important.
Right.
What are their landmarks? What are their places of importance? And so then we can then help protect or preserve them.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a version of kind of identifying what is historic and not just rely on those of us who are doing it to know it. So anyway, something historic buildings to maintain evidence of architectural heritage to connect our residents to our shared past.
yeah, focus on adaptive reuse for historic buildings. Architectural heritage. Something along those lines.
Yeah, I think restore perpetuates the misunderstanding that we require it to go back in time to look exactly like it did when it was built, and that's not reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's too elitist for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We can tweak that.
Supporting diverse cultural expressions. Okay. And events that reflect the rich cultural tapestry and unique identity of our community. Developing vibrant public spaces with impactful public art. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to say about this is that I don't have any problem with vibrant public spaces and impactful public art. That's great. But public art can be in other spaces that aren't gathering. And actually, sometimes that's the most impactful place where it can be. Under a, viaduct, in the viaducts, and on a street corner, and in a tiny little public park. And when public art becomes kind of part of your normal everyday existence, it begins to have an impact on your thought process.
Yeah.
Right. So it's developing private and public spaces with impactful public art is good, where people can gather and interact, engage. I think all that sounds good, and I think it's important to attract visitors, but there's another step about being strategic about where the public art goes, beyond the big gathering spaces. So I don't know if you need another bullet point, or if you want to, I don't know exactly what happens there.
Okay. I think it could be another bullet point, because you're saying it's more than just landmarks and big art pieces or sculpture.
Yeah.
Or,
When it is in the community.
It's embedded in the community.
Right. When you are passing 3 pieces of public art to go to the grocery store every day, that is when it becomes really meaningful. That's the moment. If you only see it once a year when you go to the 4th of July parade, it doesn't have, it's important to have it there too, but it doesn't have that kind of impact. So this bullet point is about gathering spaces, which is great, but there's another moment where public art impacts our lives, and it is in the cumulative effect of having it dispersed across the city.
So there are places I don't go anymore because of bad public art. Because I don't want to see it again.
Okay, you don't have to share that.
I think it's a very sensitive thing, you know.
Yeah.
So it's possible to have a lot of bad public art.
It is.
And it's the other thing is that there seems to be a lack of recognition of placement of public art, because you don't see an art piece standing there by itself, but you see it as, and you see the backdrop, you see the setting, you see all these other visual things that are connected with it once it's put in that place. And I've seen people put a piece of art in a place that is in total conflict with every visual thing around it, and it's like, what were they thinking? And it made a real statement that. Anyway, so overemphasizing the presence of public art and just say public art is, I don't know whether you need a qualifier or you need something that tames that thing, because it can really
show up a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I mean. But anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I just had my say.
It's about being thoughtful and making sure that it's done in a strategic way. One thing that I didn't see in the other report that we got was data about that, where our public art is, where our landmarks. I mean, there's data for everything else, but the history page is just a text. It's like a nice story that you read before you get to the good stuff. Well, we have data on these things, and if we have the data for arts and culture, then that can be overlaid with other things, and we can figure out where there needs to be more, where there needs to be different.
Yeah, to see if there's gaps. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, these are
That could be a good map. Sorry to cut you off, but for this chapter to do an analysis of what is existing now, and then the policies that follow to.
Yeah, I mean, there are patterns. You'll see them. Where we've looked at the city of Evanston and where the landmarks are and where they're not, and that should be published and analyzed and overlaid, and something needs to be done about it. That was really helpful.
Do you have an inventory of the art or of the places and landmarks of the houses?
Well, we have that.
Yeah, for sure, I know.
Yeah, I don't know whether there is ready data about the public art. I believe that there's stuff about murals and things, for sure. But there wasn't any data that I saw in this other report where there was data about other things. And so if they have the data, if they're using the data, then it's overlaid with other stuff in economic incentive programs.
Yeah, it's just about getting complete shape files that have all of that data in it. So we have historic district, so we don't have like the argumentation in this.
So the one thing is, I would make sure that your ESRI data is up to date, because the city map that you have in your report has the North Branch and South Branch libraries, which don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure that we're using, 2024 data, which is it's just to clean up.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very important thing, because it's talking about the distribution of resources.
And if they're not there, then
Yeah.
that changes. Yeah. Sure. Next is increasing housing diversity. Are we good on time? Do we need to?
I'm getting a little concerned about time.
Okay.
I think housing diversity is important, and certainly that overlays with historic preservation too. We have equitable opportunities. Is that the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you guys want to keep going?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have a break because we have another meeting.
So like the 2 more slides?
Or
Or are they going to
two
go
more
through the
slides
next steps?
here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you want to just keep going a little bit more? Okay. All right.
I won't say it.
The next goal segment is we strive to build resilient, inclusive neighborhoods where people of all ages, incomes, and family structures can find suitable and attainable housing by developing a wide range of housing types and sizes to meet diverse needs of our community, from single-family homes to multi-family units and accessory dwelling units. Implementing policies and initiatives that provide options for low to mid-income households, preventing displacement and promoting economic diversity throughout the city. Lastly, encouraging the development of medium density housing solutions that bridge the gap between single-family homes and large apartment complexes. When you look at certain areas, especially like around downtown, like it's jarring how it goes. The height difference is quite significant, so it's like, where is the transition? How do we build in a transition to get to lower density? That's kind of the last comment is touching on, which is a term that a lot of planners use, is missing middle housing. There's a lot of housing that's single family and it takes up a lot of space and has very less people, but then there's housing in between that, housing options, cottage home, fourplex, triplex, duplex, all of those. So those are some of the ideas we have for increasing the housing supply and diversity.
So that kind of answers your question. I think there are transition zones in the zoning district plan of the city, but then.
But when you see
So the thing is that you have the zoning district, but then you have planned developments that come in, and then you allow, the city council then allows so many different variations and blah blah blah, and so you end up with a building in a transition zone that should be in the like center of the downtown.
Right.
So how do you have the two jive? And that just one with housing, I would recommend looking into Donovan Ripma, who's done extensive research on historic districts and the density of housing in historic districts. So.
Okay.
My first thought when I saw this slide is that there's a lot of discussion here about development. But adaptive reuse, like an existing building, is an option.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the terminology here, the wording here could be sort of explored a little bit, so that there's not a tacit encouragement to build new.
Yeah. No, it could be redeveloping and not just developing.
Yeah. Encouraging a wide range of housing types or something like that, where you're not focused on what you're going to build. Because what ends up happening is people get this idea in their mind that they have to build it new, and then the old building comes down, instead of starting from the idea that, in fact, actually the existing building is the most sustainable climate-friendly option, because you're not creating all that waste. And so, historic preservation and affordable housing, they are brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
They are absolutely together. And so some variation on that in this would be really, really great.
Well, and even now, we're looking at 2045, office building conversion to residential.
Right.
is a big topic now.
Right. And that would be a strategy in this chapter or under this goal. But then, yeah, what's next? What's after that? Like, what do we do? What does it convert back to? Like, just being flexible.
We're developing this choice.
It is, it really, really is. It could have some variation that is adaptive reuse, but it doesn't in practical application. You just see development and greenfield development.
Well,
Yeah.
just using the word development in a pretty built-up city already is kind of our thing. You know, it's like if you're going to develop, something has to go. So
Right.
you have to make that.
Right, so putting something here in this goal, which encourages people to take as the first step an acceptance of what is there, and then move from that. And that you only develop if you have to. As like the backup plan, not the first idea.
Yeah, like maybe some incentives or restrictions that the cure of the sick, right? We include to encourage acquire adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
First step. I also agree with this. So instead of incentives for this, we didn't mention affordable housing in the same breath as taxes. It came up. Also, a taxpayer resident, taxes are very high here. So it trickles down to rentals. If people have rental properties, we have a rental property. It's the same. I mean, you kind of want to keep pace with the taxes you're paying. So I don't know I don't know what can happen in that sphere at all, but I definitely knew it came up in your presentation, and I feel strongly about it as well.
Does anyone else have anything that they want to say about affordable housing?
Last one. So this encompasses a lot: creating equitable opportunities for all, striving to build a equitable, inclusive, and sustainable community where every resident has an opportunity to thrive and enjoy a high quality of life and well-being. That's inclusive land use, enhanced transportation, that's connecting people to places they want to visit, connecting them to jobs, job creation and economic opportunities so they can work here and stay here, housing diversity and attainability, which we just touched on, vibrant arts and culture, environmental sustainability, and a culture of active community participation. So these are ways we'll touch on equitable opportunities, but those are also the strategies will be in land use, transportation and mobility, economic development, housing, arts and culture, and environmental sustainability. So you see it touches on pretty much all of the plan because it's for everyone.
So you mentioned on an earlier slide, there was some mention of the quality of schools, but I don't see any slide or mention of it after your first slide. As I have 3 school-age kids, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where that's incorporated in here. I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, typically in comp plans I've worked on, we will incorporate schools in like shared spaces. It can come up in the parks and open space chapter quite a bit with, it's a community asset, but school planning is not in the purview of the city, so it's hard to like tell the school.
Oh, you said this was we, the city, the people, everyone. This isn't just a city plan, so I feel like you have to include that. That's so important. It's a make or break for moving the community.
And I think that the school district is currently doing an audit of its buildings. Evanston has amazing school architecture. The historic architecture here is paramount. I mean, like, to be able to go to Nichols Middle School or Washington or any of the, you name all the schools. I think that's part of the preservation too. Like, we need to somehow, if it's we, the whole community, these are our jewels, and it's where we educate our children, and we need to preserve it not only as a center of education, but also because of their architecture or their setting.
I will say something after all that. So when you say job creation is if you're employing someone from out of town, they take the money and go. And that's not nearly as good as someone who lives in town. Like I said, cash your check in Evanston. So it should be local employment opportunities.
Okay.
To use that as a way to kind of say, live here, work here.
Yeah. And it's in the vision statement too, is that local circular economy too. We can touch on it there, but we can
And also, that's one way to address affordable housing. If people make more money, they can afford the housing. It doesn't have to be create cheaper housing for people who don't have money. Give people more money.
There's a whole model of economic development that's preservation-based economic development.
Absolutely.
And this community it really identifies with that model to me in a lot of these smaller business districts. And there's entire subsets of how those districts are managed in a preservation model. And I'm not sure you're aware of the National Main Street Center. It's highly effective.
Yes. Their model and their grants and all the Main Street program.
All of the city jobs will be held by Evanston citizens by 2045.
Yeah, other cities that I've lived in cities like that. You have to live there to work there. So yeah.
I wanted just to, since we have to finish this now.
Yeah.
On page 25, 142, so if you just go down to where it says the history of Evanston. Yeah, right there, sorry. So this is what I was talking about, it's just all text. And all the other pages of this they have data. So I think that there's data that exists, and I would like to encourage people to think about how to use that.
I would just like to see the schools somehow do a big district, see packages, do some engagement. Maybe we can say to schools. They have a lot of buildings right now that they're looking at unloading. There's some issues about people's desirability of Evanston, so families, people want to settle. They're going to look at schools first.
Oh yeah, it's a big part. Yeah.
I think we unfortunately need to move on to the next part of our meeting.
Can I ask just a question? What happens from this point?
So from this point, we're refining goals. We're doing pop-up events, going to different locations throughout the city this week, getting feedback from the community. What do you like about this goal? What do you dislike? Similar to what we've done today. And then refining. That's the vision and the goals. And then coming up with the bold ideas, presenting those to city council, seeing if there's some people there. And so all the chapters, writing the content, kind of how it was organized earlier, doing the analysis, saying where we are right now, adding policies and strategies to how we improve whatever we identify in that analysis.
For that, proposal for that to be voted on, just high level, maybe you don't know, but.
The approval process, yeah, I don't have a date for that actually, but I can call it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do, because the Preservation Commission has a preservation plan that we put together, a long-range plan. So how,
Preserve 2040.
right, and so how, is that going to be somehow integrated into this?
Yeah,
or?
so, there's, the plans the city has shared with us at the beginning of the project, beginning of this planning process. Some of those have been incorporated into the preliminary findings, but the action items that are in those plans can be incorporated into this plan already. When we go through and see what's been done and what hasn't been done, what's been implemented and why not, kind of asking those questions. And incorporating things in this plan as well. So it won't be, if there's plans out there we want to incorporate those, we're not starting from scratch and thinking of ideas. Like the ideas that have already been, you already did your own community engagement and gathered input on those as well. So those can be placed in this plan as well.
You gonna come back? See us again?
When is the next meeting? Let me know.
We meet every month.
Let me know. Okay.
Except August.
Except
Okay,
August.
I will be back in August, but.
It's supposed to, our meeting schedule is supposed to have on the website.
Okay, so
So
it's not me personally, it might be city staff, but.
it's always great to have conversations like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Present.
Okay, so, I just wanted to get. Okay, I just wanna let, I don't know.
Here.
Okay, yeah. Carl? All right, well, we have had our meeting since 5:30, so we need a little bit of a break. So we're gonna take 10 minutes, and then we're gonna come back, and we are on item number 4. So we're gonna take 10 minutes, we'll be back at 7:12. Plan. or under the discussion aspect of the agenda. So I see that there are, if some of you, if any of you are here to talk about specific projects, there will be public comment when we get to each of those projects. So I would like to, if anyone who would like to speak about something that is not an actual project on the menu, on the agenda, no, I'm thinking about dinner, that isn't on the agenda, an opportunity to speak, since I see that there are a lot of people here that weren't here when we had that item. So is there anyone here, members of the public, wishing to speak on items that are not currently on the agenda? Okay. All right, seeing none, we are on item number 4, old business, which the case has been withdrawn. Do we need to read that into the record? Okay. All right, then we are moving on to item number 5, new business. First case is 24 Pres 0085, 1036 Forest Avenue in the Lakeshore Historic District. Could staff please read that into the record?
Owen Gutierrez, architect and applicant on behalf of the property owner, submits for certificate of appropriateness to construct a new 2 1/2 story single-family home and detached alley accessible garage, a vacant lot in the Lakeshore Historic District. The portion orders construction 1 through 16. Over. You ready?
Yes.
Oh, do you want the presentation? Yes.
Yeah, give me the mouse back.
If you could just let us, once you're ready, just tell us your name, who you are, and stuff, so we can hear.
Sure. My name is Omar Gutierrez. I'm the architect for Natalia and Andres Duarte years.
We can't hear you here. Speak a little louder.
Is there a microphone? Or, I mean, I can.
We just sit on the side and.
Sure.
You want to take the podium back?
This can come on? All right, I'm going to try my best to project. My name is Omar Gutierrez. I'm the architect for Andres and Natalia Duarte, owners of 1036 Forest, and we are presenting our design for a single-family home. This is backwards. Edit. Oh, I see. I just need to go all the way back. This is the start. There. So this is the site plan for our property. For the property, we're proposing a 31.5 wide home on a center on the lot. It's a 50-foot lot. We have 9.25 north and south setbacks, so it's center, and 24.33 setback from forest, which is more than the minimum required. And 67, I'm sorry, from 1034 is 2433, that's the home to the south. And then the setback to the home on the north, 1048, is 6775. Their south yard is very large compared to I just brought these for reference in case we refer to them later. I'm just going to skip by the floor plans. And then there's a detached garage, 3-car garage with a 1-car parking pad by the alley. This is the front elevation. It's facing east. We have a projected gable with brackets and a gable pediment. It's a full width covered porch with offset entries. This is a very common condition found in the block and in the district. We have taller, wider groups of windows in the bottom. The windows on the second floor are a little bit shorter. And then finally, the window on the top is narrower and shorter. This follows progression found in other homes in the block as well. We're proposing a standing seam roof throughout, and solar panels only on the south-facing part, which is left. It's 3.8 above grade, which is something that, again, that we have found common in this district, that where the homes are not just at grade, but they're elevated from grade. And the height proposed is 34.58, below the 35-foot maximum allowed. This is the south-facing elevation. What you see here will be the array of solar panels. That will be the only area of the home that will have them. And we are proposing to take all the plumbing vents or exhaust terminations and move them to the north side so that we have a continuous rectangle instead of a patchy array of solar panels. This is the north-facing elevation. And this is the rear-facing elevation. We have a raised wood deck and a small pergola by the modern entry. We continue the architectural language in the back with projected gables, gable pediments, and wider arrays of windows and doors on the first floor, medium on the second, and the smallest on the attic. This is the detached garage elevations. And a proportion of feature study. So the first floor is elevated from grade, as I mentioned, 3'8". Very, very common condition. Some homes are about 3 foot above grade. Some homes are up to 6 feet above. So we're somewhere in the mix. We have high ceilings with roof pitch similar to the homes of the block. You can see when I take this out of the view, like that. So this, our pitch is nearly identical to this home, which is, I believe, across the street. And something that we borrowed from the home 1030 next door is the proportion of the windows, the proportion of width to height from the first floor. We may not be matching the same dimension, but we're matching the proportion as it gets shorter in the middle and shortest in the top. And that's indicated by the colors of the diagonal lines on the study that you see there. Some precedents to kind of establish that what we're proposing is something that we wanted to feel familiar, to feel like it belongs in Evanston. Home on the same block, 1020. It's a home with projected gable precedent. Front porch with offset entry instead of center entry. These are all homes in this block, by the way. Shallow pitch, roughly 812, which is what we're proposing. These are 3 different homes with roughly that pitch on the block. Standing seam metal roof. There's a home on the corner of the north block, 1 block away. That is this home that features standing seam metal roofs. And this is a photo montage of the 3D model that we developed and put in with a view of the home. So the home to the left, 30, is, I want to say, 37 foot high. It escapes me, but I think I have that information later. And the home to the right is actually larger, but it's very difficult to see with foliage in this photo. So we're trying to be as nearly as high as possible allowed by zoning in order to not appear too small within the context of the block. This is another streetscape. This time, kind of not. I actually modeled this home as best as I could with photographic material, so that I could actually present that here, so that we could have an idea of what the home looks like within its context. And then this will be a more head-on seeing other homes on the block. You can see a home that's slightly smaller, set forward a few feet, and I have that information as well if anybody cares to ask. And another strategy that we employed here, and it's a dual strategy here, is the eave height is fairly high in the house, and the pitch is rather shallow. This is so that the sun hitting the solar panels is not going to reflect back into the attic of 1030. This way, we're reflecting them right back up. And I have a geotag solar study that I can show the progression of shadows throughout the year, throughout the time of the day, so that we know we're not reflecting them back to the windows.
Excuse me, would you mind picking up that image of us that you
Oh,
moved out of the way?
sure,
It's
sorry.
just for public record. has to be
It's
recorded.
put here.
Thank you, yeah.
Sure. This is additional views of the model within its context. This is from the back from the alley. And this is an aerial view that really kind of illustrates the picture. As we zoom out a little bit, we're able to see a little bit more how things fit. Obviously, there's a big difference between this yard and this yard, but it's more of a function of our lot. Our lot is 50 feet. And it's not much wiggle room we have where we put the home. Other views, aerial views of the model. And then this one is actually showing satellite view of even more homes, so you can see kind of the rhythm appearing in the block. I don't know if we want to go through each standard necessarily, or maybe that's part of the discussion, or it's up to
If
you.
you would like to present
Okay.
some
Sure.
overview of those standards?
Sure. On height, we're less than we're allowed. We're trying to make the home appear a bit larger than it really is within the confines of the zone. So the first floor ceiling is 10 feet. The second one is 9 feet. And this is done to provide large massing in the front, and then and also for energy efficiency, it's just better to have cool air, the hot air rise. Proportions of facades. It is carefully designed to relate to the adjacent structure and all the other homes within. The adjacent structures mostly through proportions and features like the wide front porch, the proportions of the windows, so that's mainly how it relates to the adjacent structures, which are a bit of outliers in the block. One is a very large and very wide home on the north, and another one is a brick, very imposing, it's beautiful, but very quite an outlier on the 1030 Forest. Proportions of openings. Both neighboring homes have a wide range of window opening proportions. We did focus mostly on the front facing, of course. The proportions of the proposed homes' windows and doors are within the facing structures. Many homes in the district feature taller windows in the first floor and shorter in the second one. Rhythm of solids to voids in the facade. This is actually fairly average in the amount of massing without windows to not windows with windows as compared to other homes on the block. Rhythm and spacing structures on the street. We believe that just by infilling this lot, we actually kind of help the rhythm streets. So right now, it does stand out as this empty lot along a progression of homes. So the current empty lot kind of does break that. The facade features simple massing with a wide, tall stance as allowed by the zoning code. The maximization of the frontage of the facade is also softened by the frontage porch. Right? The thing you see first is a one-story structure, not the entire two-story. And the proposed home sits 3.38 further away than the minimum allowed by zoning code, approximately 3.5 feet closer to the street than the home to the south. And this is to kind of make it appear relatively larger just by a few feet of let's say, closer in a way. Rhythm of entrance porches, storefront recesses, and other projections. The entry to the home is offset to the north in an effort to locate it somewhat closer to the north neighbor, which has a wider yard. So we didn't want to have our door that much closer to 1030 since we had all the other side to use, and we flipped it from the original design that we had. The proposed home features a full cover porch, very similar to others. Relationship of materials and texture. Many homes in the district and on the block feature wood horizontal and shingle siding. We're proposing that. This home will be clad with composite siding and trim that closely matches the look of wood. This is not vinyl siding. This is the good stuff. The composite siding and trim will be made partly of recycled materials. And it has the added benefit of longevity. Right? This is material that doesn't rot. The roof is a medium gray standing seam roof made from recycled materials, and the windows will be aluminum clad windows. I particularly favor margin, and we'll probably go that route if I have my way. Roof shapes and roof mounted equipment. The primary roof form is a front facing gable and a shed roof on the front porch. The rear of the home has a double gable to roof the area of the main bedroom that protrudes out. Solar panels are mounted on the south-facing roof only. All the roof penetrations are going to be on the north side, so we have a simple rectangular array rather than a irregular set of solar panels. The panels will be mounted on the standing seam roof, so that way we don't have to penetrate the roof. And if there's any upgrade in the future, they could simply be unclipped and replaced. This is really a best practices approach. The eave height and 812 pitch achieved by the 10-foot ceilings and 9-foot ceilings are in an effort to give the home a little bit a bigger massing to kind of not compete, but fit with the larger neighbors, and also to have a shallow roof that won't glare the sun on the neighbors. Walls of continuity. Both neighboring homes are among the largest and tallest in the context of the block. Again, we're just trying to fit in as much as we can with the confines of the regulations. The home has a proportional relationship to its most visible neighbor on 1030. Scale, I think we've talked about that. And then directional expression of facades. The home has a horizontal character with a long, wide porch and an offset entry, a wide stance with high eaves, and the main home mass and shallow roof pitches. These are characteristics that are common in the block.
So
The home innovative design. The home will feature the solar panel array. It will likely not offset the entire consumption of the home, but it will be a large amount of the consumption will be offset by the solar panels. On new construction standards, the design is clearly traditional with materials and proportions that relate to the neighborhood. We want to fit in. We want to come in with something traditional that says it's a Evanston home. I actually live in a home very close and you look and feel of this, and I love it. I've been in Evanston for 25 years. And that's our presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you all have questions for the applicant? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, compliments to you on a very nice presentation. All of the drawings are basically line drawings in black and white, and I'm wondering the color palette of the materials. And I know standing seam metal roofs, which become very fashionable, are also available in like 25 different colors. What color do you see the roof being?
The roof is going to be a medium gray. We want it to be not too reflective. It also the palette of the siding and the shingles in the front gables. We don't have it yet, but we are leaning towards a medium blue with white trim throughout and white windows as well. So it will be a very 2-3 color palette, very simple. As the design of the home, so we're not trying to just put too many items or too many features in a rather simple design.
Other questions for the applicant?
Do solar panel, that solar panel guidelines apply to existing buildings that we've been, I'm just wondering.
So I had the same question, the solar panel
I think it's both. I think they would apply.
Okay.
Simple geometric patterns, easily reversible, not on primary roof faces.
So we do have the solar panel guidelines for historic properties.
I have a question about the placement on the lot.
Okay.
Is there? Did I hear you say that you actually shifted it somewhat to the north to allow more space between the new structure and the brick structure?
So what we did was shift the entry to
The entry
front,
door.
so that we're not like
Yeah.
so close to 1030.
Right.
And we have such a big yard on the right side, on the north side,
Right.
so that by putting on that side, we won't be close to anybody else's entry because there's so much land in between.
So, in terms of the placement, did you consider moving it back a little bit on? It seems, did you ever consider moving it back a little bit onto the lot and also shifting it slightly more to the north? Because you have, so much room between that structure and the south structure that you could create a larger space, which may make it aesthetically a little.
Yeah, we would definitely consider that. I do want to make sure, we do have some egress window wells.
Yeah.
And I can't remember off the top of my head if they can encroach on side yard setbacks.
They can.
Yeah. They can, okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't see a reason why we couldn't do that. Of course, I would have to consult with my client, but we didn't consider that, but it's not a bad idea.
Street views make it appear that it's a little further back, but then when you see from the sky level,
Correct.
you see it. So it seems to be. It seems like it feels like it needs to be, maybe back.
Sure. Our measure was 1030, so we were 3.5 feet forward. My guess is if we were to match that, I think that would be ideal, because we're also among the smallest lots, and we don't want to reduce our backyard that much, if that's, you know what I mean?
I understand.
We just don't have as much land as other homes. But yeah, we would definitely consider that.
So, I actually had this, similar comment. So this is, standard number 5, rhythm of spacing and structures on the street. When we are looking here, what is I'm on page 58, which is this one. Oh, the site plan, right? So the red box here, right, is the minimum setback.
Correct.
So if you were to shift it to the north, to the northernmost setback line, how many feet are we talking about north?
I can tell you.
I'm sure that it is.
So we have 9.25, and the minimum setback is 6 feet. So we're talking 3.5 feet.
3.5 feet.
But you could move it north.
And what is the spacing? It's 9.5, 9.25.
9.25 on both sides right now.
Okay,
So one would be
you're
like
adding,
12.
you're adding 3 feet to that. So you're increasing it 30%? Did I do my math right? You're increasing
Yes.
the space between this, if you were to move it north.
Sure.
You would be increasing the space between this building and the brick one
Yeah.
by
that would-
30%. Yeah, because it feels a little cramped.
Okay.
A little, cramped is not quite the word. A little shoved in.
A little close.
What is the word?
Shoved in.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
So that's number 5, standard number 5.
That's a good point. I will take it for sure.
The other standard that I just for reference, number 13, archaeological resources. Right now, we know that we're not aware of any archaeological resources.
Correct.
But has anything been built on this site before, or has it always been a yard, like a garden? It was always a side yard.
We just subdivided, but it's in a yard.
Okay.
Didn't it say 1030 had a side piece that was
Yeah.
taken off of it? So
So
there was
there was something there.
It was a
So-
subdivision.
Not the whole thing. Well, in any case, just so that we say it, during construction, if you are digging and you encounter some archaeological resources, required to stop the project immediately and contact the authorities. And we do, think about that on lots that haven't necessarily been already disturbed, especially close to the lake, where we know that there were Native American peoples. So I just want to be clear that even though it says NA in your presentation, it's a standard that's applicable to everybody actually during construction. Stuart, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the first part of Sarah's comments. I know you made an effort to center the house on the site, but given the setbacks and given the huge side yard for the corner house, and given the size of that house, I don't think that will ever be subdivided or anything will ever be built on it. In terms of the spacing of buildings on the street, I think you could easily shift the house over to the north side property line. The other thing that is sort of curious about the siting of the house in terms of the setbacks is your drawings make it look like you've gone to a real effort to align the eaves of your porch with adjacent porch in the Oscar Mayer Mansion. So it raises the question for me of why the setback to the front of your porch wasn't just aligned with the Oscar Mayer Mansion porch. Seems like a sort of no-brainer versus the couple of feet that you've set back in the property line.
Well, our intention was to, since this is a smaller home, to make it appear rather slightly larger just by being a few feet forward. But it's something that we can revise.
Well, it actually looks.
It has the opposite.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Yeah, looks like about 2 feet.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah.
It's not much at all.
Other questions for the applicant?
Okay, go ahead.
So you tried to match the eve to the Oscar Mayer house, right? And so that I think I heard you say that the slope of the roof is so that the glare of the solar panels would not go into the third floor of the house next door. But then it's also matching the slope. Is it matching the slope of the other gables on the street?
No.
Or
It is matching the slope of some gables in the street. So let me go back to the model so we can kind of see them in context. So in here, for example, so the eaves start roughly at the same place. If I were to have a steep pitch, if you follow my mouse here, if I were to have something steep, I would actually reflect the light back to the 1030. So by having it shallow, I'm going to reflect it upwards towards the sky. That was the effect, and it also gave us a little bit more massing instead of having low eaves and steep pitches.
and so is that a functional window in the?
This is an attic window.
Attic
It's
window.
not functional. And we don't have a finished attic. It's not finished.
In case, like, instead of a window, did you think of potentially doing a vent or some kind of decorative design?
So we could.
No.
Attics.
Well, I know, but
Correct.
just to fit, just to kind of addability. I mean, are there any other houses that have
So there's
attic
a lot
windows?
of, there's many homes that have attic windows in the block, including dormers, including 1030 right here. I mean, those are all attic windows, right?
Right.
Granted, it's a different architectural language, but they are attic windows. And like Mr. Cohen said, we don't really vent attics anymore, and that was the intention here. We're not going to vent it.
The gable end windows are pretty typical.
Correct. They're very typical.
Of traditional houses. Like
And we wanted to feature something to not have that big mass of siding there. We want to actually have a little bit more underneath there.
Other questions for the applicant? Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is public comment, right? Do we read these that we have first?
Yeah, you can read those, or if you'd like me to.
Yeah. Are they both for this?
They're both.
Okay. All right. So we've got two public comments via email. So Seth is going to read those into the record, and then we have a sign sheet. Okay. So we'll start with after Kay reads into the record. We'll start with. There's actually only two people on here that are signed up to speak on this. Catherine Malazia will be the first person, and then Joel Hammerman will be the second person, and then there's no one else on this list that is here to speak about this project, so then we'll move to people that haven't signed up yet. And it'll be 3 minutes each, and we'll keep track of it here for you. So, go ahead. Okay.
I received comments from Mr. David Turner at 1031 Forest Avenue. His comment is that it seems from the artist rendering that the design of the front of the house is is very simple and modern, much more so than is appropriate for the 1,000 block of Forest Avenue. So I have not seen the plan myself, but I've been told that the house is set much closer to Forest Avenue than it is to the school lot. Another comment from Mr. Adam Gajani at 1039 Forest Avenue. I have some issues with the style and execution of this home. It's 3 points. The architectural style is unlike anything in our historic neighborhood. It looks more modern than a historical home. The materials of the home are not up to the style of our neighborhood. The metal roof and siding doesn't seem compatible. There are no other homes on the block with this combination of elements. The proposed home is set extremely close to the street, closer than the single-family home on Forest with blocks. Just before the meeting, too, I received a phone call from Mr. David Green. I don't recall the address. His concerns with the standing seam metal roof not being a compatible material, and then the lacking modulation of the side elevations, that they're just flat planes from front to back, and you see more modulation involved in some adjoining structures.
All right, thank you for that. Catherine Malazia, if you would like to. Omar, we're going to have folks come to the podium.
You can go first.
I'm sorry? So this is Joel Hammerman first? Okay. So if you want to just, we're going to wave our hands or something when we have like 30 seconds left.
Okay, then I'll try to speak quickly. So my name is Joel Hammerman. I live at 1030 Forest Avenue, which is commonly referred to as the Oscar Meyer House. This is the property that is to the south and adjacent to the proposed design. There are numerous references in the presentation by the applicant that the proposed design is to make the house look more substantial, larger, so that it won't look smaller in comparison to the adjacent homes. The proposal attempts to justify that design because the lot is set between larger homes on larger footprints, but respectfully, it appears that the intent of the design, and this Mr. I forget your last name, I apologize, Omar referenced, was to effectively make the house as big as it could on the footprint, to give it a bigger backyard and an expanded square footage, it appears. It's as expanded as far as it can be from north to south, and then it is actually set forward, as the committee has noted, further towards the street. And in doing so, it's adopted an architectural design that is not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood. At its core, the house is designed as a front gable house with no architectural variation on either side. I'm not an architect, and I don't have the specialized knowledge of this committee. However, it's my understanding that this design style would be more common in a kind of a smaller house on a smaller lot with similarly sized homes. It's not a design that's in keeping with the neighborhood or the parcel on which it's to be built. There are no single front gabled homes in the area, and the fact that other homes have gabled architecture features does not make it consistent with the neighborhood. Rather, it's a design that is not just, it's not unique, but it doesn't harmonize with the surrounding homes. Moreover, I would respectfully submit that the drawing on isolated features like differentiating window sizes of other homes does not somehow harmonize the design with the surrounding homes. Putting aside the front-facing east facade of the house, none of the homes in the surrounding area are designed without any architectural variation on both sides of the homes. The design presents a north side line that will be prominently visible from the street that consists of a straight line wall with massive metal roof stretching from back to front with no architectural attributes other than a few windows. From the south, from the view of our home, we'll look out at effectively a flat wall with no variation whatsoever. Again, because the line moves the house closer to the street, we'll also cut off views from the street towards the street. And if you're looking north, including those from the northeast windows of our home. From the outside position of the house, I will actually conceal much of the dust from our house from the street. Respectfully submit that our house has some unique architectural elements that the forwarded positioning of this proposed design will hide many of those elements from the street in a way that detracts from the architectural interest and the beauty of Forest Avenue. Now, I understand the architect may have wanted his design to appear larger than the use of, through the use of spacing perspective. I submit that concealing architecturally interesting features of our homes to do so would be a mistake. In addition, the committee's way to ask our house is a third floor with numerous windows. Those are not adequate windows. That's all livable space, and we use that space. In an effort to maximize the solar panel exposure, we'll actually just be looking at solar panels all the time. We'd submit that a metal roof, which is not consistent with any other roof in the neighborhood, there is just over a small sunroof nearby, you're going to have us looking at basically a wall of solar panels. They could use other types of solar attributes, for example, like solar shingles that now exist that actually are much more comparable to a typical roof. It wouldn't be something that we would have to look at. And I know I'm short on time, so I'm just going to cut to the very end here.
Thank you.
With the size of the existing homes in proportion to the lot size, I would say that the 1036 Forest Avenue sign is not kind of consistent with all of the architectural designs that are there. I know that a lot of our neighbors have spoken to us. Generally speaking, what we would agree with Omar again that there needs to be housing. It's been too long. It's great that someone's bought it. We're excited to have new neighbors. But we do think the architectural design should fit within the scope of the neighborhood. And I'd ask for just the committee to consider a couple of points that you already touched on. First is the house should not be the closest to the street. I'm almost done.
Yeah.
It should not be the closest to the street.
Yeah.
It should be set back in a way that is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. It shouldn't be a roof that effectively that's the only thing that we can see from our house. And the solar panels should, of course, match. We would ask that there be architectural variations on the side of the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, Catherine Malazia.
All right, I'll use less time than Joel. So I also live at 1034. I'm very excited to finally have a house instead of a vacant lot next door. I do share some of Joel's and our neighbor's concerns about the style of the house, but I will tell you that my primary concern is about the setback. It is further forward than any other house on the street, including ours, and particularly in contrast to the house to the north, it's much further forward. I do think that this will make it more prominent, but it could also, but not necessarily in a good way. And I think it will disrupt the rhythm of the block. So I would ask the commission to consider that in reviewing this plan. I also share Joel's concerns about some of the materials, particularly the aluminum roof and the solar panels. I have not seen the study, but I am very concerned. I mean, that third floor is our living room, it's our rec room, we spend a ton of time there, our kids play there. To have solar panels, even if they're offset, which I hope they will be, to have the glare, to have the aluminum roof, it's not in keeping with the style of the neighborhood, and I am concerned that it is going to be a nuisance both from the street, particularly with the setback, and also to us when we're just in our home. So those are my primary concerns. I do share some of the same concerns that others have expressed about sort of the rhythm of the northern and southern exposure. I do think it could probably be a little bit more architecturally interesting, but I am excited about that. Always. And I do appreciate the effort to try to mimic other styles in the neighborhood, both proportionally and historically.
All right, thank you. Okay, should we put this? All right, so if there's anyone else that is going to, would like to speak, we're going to put the sign-in sheet here, and when you come, in addition to telling us what your name is, if you could please put it there, that would be great. So I see that, would you like to come up? Sure. We don't usually meet in this room, I think I said that a second ago, and usually what we have is like a little timer that's there where you are speaking, so we are unused to kind of like giving you guys the wave, but we're going to try to make it so that everybody has an equal amount of time. Go ahead.
My name is Celia. I live at 1014 Forest, so right up the block. And I too am excited to the idea of having a new neighbor because we are the Great Divide of Forest Avenue, and we all know each other and like each other all very much. And I've heard great things about the new people. So I'm really happy about that, and that's the fact that you are trying really hard to put it in context of the other houses. When I looked at the proposal, there were three things that came to my mind that popped out. They've pretty much already been said, but I wanted to repeat them. And one is the pushing forward of the house just seems like the wrong thing. It belongs backwards. It doesn't fit with the flow of the other houses, and trying to put it out as more prominent is a little distracting and disturbing as I walk by. I walk by that street every day to walk my dog. The second thing was really the roof line. I found it, I looked at all the houses, and after this project I looked particularly at roofs around the neighborhood. And they all have not only just this pointed thing at the top, they have gables, they have movement. They have some peaks and valleys. Sometimes it's just a gable, but that flat kind of finish just doesn't fit in the neighborhood, I thought. So I would love to see a little bit more texture or change in the roof line. My second point, and also I found the idea of those, they look really big, the solar panels. I thought that it's going to be a greenhouse and that maybe that's the style and one lives with it, but there seems to be, there might be other ways to bring that about. I love the idea that Joel said something about the shingles that now are solar. So it's very unsightly as you walk by. But I really appreciate those beautiful pictures to show how much it is like other houses. But I think some of the things that were missed would matter a lot to make it more like houses. Are you ready to hear my name?
I'm sorry. Yes, please. Yes, please.
I'm Dominique Gallman, and I live at 1048, which is the house to the north. Really weird, which is fun. So I'm thrilled to have new neighbors, and actually there's a lot I like about this house, probably more than I dislike. And I'm absolutely happy if you move your house north to maximize your lot on the south. Yeah, we have plenty of space too. And we've got wonderful trees, and it's, it's going to be lovely. I would like to echo some of the thoughts of my neighbors that setting it forward, I don't think it's necessary, and it does seem a little odd to me. And that continual flat roof roof line, I don't know how to describe it in architectural terms, but just to echo what Laura said, it's not consistent with the neighborhood. And the plainness of the side, again, that's been commented on. I think to the north it probably doesn't matter because of the amount of mature trees and the younger trees that are being planted right now as we get to the end of our construction. But I do think to the south it will be more noticeable, what a large continuous plain wall that might be. I'm back and forth on the metal roof because I've had one. They're awesome. They're completely no maintenance. But they are not very consistent with the neighborhood. I've seen one in particular over on Lakeshore, which I think just in how they shape the roof echoed the other historic homes around it. So even though the material isn't historic, it had a really nice flow in how it echoed, the stuff around it. So I don't know. And yeah, we considered the solar panels. That's a tough call because we've also looked at the cost of the shingles. The solar shingles are amazing, and they are also very out of reach. And hopefully when Tesla gets enough orders, their price will come down. So I don't know. They're very expensive these days. And again, I'd rather see it out there and new neighbors. So yeah, that's not too bad. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Judy Kemp. We live at 1026 Forest, which is just a house to the south of the Oscar Mayer house. And I'm going to very briefly just sort of echo comments that have been made before. I agree with the commenters about the fact that it's too far forward and it needs to come further back. I like the idea of moving it further north, also in order to give a little more space between that house and 1030. And my biggest concern, other than those, is both the north and the south sides of the house having no different, just a wall with the windows on it. And all of the houses on the block either have bay windows coming out someplace or a dormer someplace. We have multiple dormers and gabley things, I don't know. I'm not an architect. But on both sides of our house. And so we're much closer to 1030 than they'll be. I mean, there's just a driveway between our houses. But because there's something more interesting to look at when you look out the window and when you drive north or south, it makes it much more appealing. I'm also, as all the other neighbors said, looking forward to having new neighbors in that space. And I just hope that when we look at each other's houses, we'll all be able
Others? I want to make sure I'm not missing any hands. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Omar, this is your opportunity to come back and respond to anything that we have heard. And then after you're done, then you can sit and then we will deliberate. That's how it actually goes.
That's something that the front setback and the north rear setback are something that we can absolutely look at. The articulation is something we might have to consider. I think that is something that you guys reach the conclusion that needs to happen. But yeah, we're wanting to be good neighbors and come in with something that's standards. We're absolutely willing to this redesign that's needed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Kate, you please.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at between Steve and your concerns.
No, just yeah.
Okay. So this is our opportunity now. Do you want to start?
I have a question for Katie. I know from reading the packet, there was a design approved prior. I know obviously you went out with the new design, but I'm just curious, it was approved, never built. I was just curious what that, do you have any idea?
I don't know the specifics.
Okay.
I think it was, maybe the property was owned and controlled by the same architect that designed it and didn't move forward, but I think it was approved and then wasn't constructed and then came back for reapproval, received that, I believe, and then didn't have constructed and sold.
I was just curious on the style of the house, like if that was
more prairie style. Yeah, it was traditional. It was divergent from this, but similar.
Okay.
I have two comments. One, it would, I don't know, it might be helpful if the second story, the siding was maybe at least vertical or of a texture, more textured material that would add a variation to that. There are a lot of different materials and things that could go, that could be, that might be helpful. The other thing is, moving it all the way to the north, I didn't think that along the tree line there, that there were any trees that would be affected by foundation construction. But I really didn't take a good look on the other side of the fence, the house to the north, whether or not there were any trees in there that may be impacted by your.
Do you want my comment? So we've looked at the trees because the architect that sold them the lot was our architect for our renovations, and the older trees are also not trees that are meant to be that big, and so we had already considered that with him when he was talking about, like we had reviewed his home, and so we weren't concerned if those trees had to go, because we have a lot of younger trees that will create a really nice screen, and like I said, they're not trees that were meant to be like 100-year-old trees.
I will comment though that we now have a tree preservation ordinance in the state of Evanston, and we also have a tree.
It doesn't fit the diameter.
No, one of the species, I don't know. I didn't look at that. But if you want to comment.
I mean, he called them weeds, or my
I think they were
my
box,
arborist.
I think they were box elder, as a matter of fact.
Just as a matter of administration, we usually don't have a back and forth between, no, it's okay, between the commission and the audience, but because this
Because I don't know
particular.
what I'm doing.
No, it's just because this particular speaker didn't use her full 3 minutes, so I just went ahead and just so that everybody understood.
So I will go on a statement that we do, because I noticed in one packet they did mention tree preservation, and but I just thought it out there that now that we do have a staff person hired, that I think they're now implementing the tree ordinance, right?
Yes.
Right. And new construction is particularly a concern because of foundation.
Well, I was just a follow-up. So you were talking about the change in direction of the siding on the second floor above the porch roof, or the whole all four stuff. Okay.
Go ahead, Stu.
Yeah. I live on Forest Avenue. Forest Avenue, like sections of Ridge, is a really unique street. It's grand, old, imposing houses on very large lots, which allow, for instance, enough of a setback so that the south orientation could have bays and porches. There are a few smaller houses in Forest Avenue, which are wood, but not very many. This is a small lot compared to everything else on Forest Avenue. I would characterize this as cottage in scale, rather than really like the houses on Forest Avenue. In terms of the setbacks, I agree with what's been said, although for the front setback, because of its visual proximity to the Oscar Mayer Mansion, I think I would favor an alignment. Given that there's this huge tree space between the corner house and this loft, I think you probably see more of the north facade than the south facade, and perhaps the architect wants to consider some sort of relief, perhaps a bay where there's now a large window. I think that was the stair actually, but maybe if it had a slight projection and did something to relieve the long horizontal surface, because I find the front nice in its cottagey characteristics. I think the sides are kind of perfunctory. The last thing I want to say is about the standing seam metal roof. Okay? Had we looked at this same project 5 or 6 years ago, it would have had a wood shingle roof, which is infinitely nicer than what people are putting on new houses, not modest new houses now, which are asphalt shingles. One of the reasons that a standing seam metal roof has become almost a go-to option for houses like this is the insurance industry. Go try and get insurance on a wood shingle roof. Traditional houses like this, built from the 1880s up through the 1940s and then again in the 80s and the 90s, were all done with wood shingle roofs. And insurance companies do not want to insure them. I think it's astronomical to get them insured even when they're treated. So if you drive around and you see a lot of standing seam metal roofs, that, in addition to the fact that I think it's a contemporary look that architects tend to like these days, that's also one of the drivers of that material selection.
Yeah, so just really briefly, I think the porch makes sense. I agree with pushing it back, moving it to the north, and like sort of said, adding some, doesn't have to be a lot of elements, but something to give the south side some relief. It kind of feels like an infill building, and it's got a wider lot than that, so there's just more presence from where that you could do a little bit something without spending a ton of money, your client's money. And this is just a smaller thing and personal thing. It feels like there's a little bit of air in the plan, and the fact that there are 5 steps instead of 6, 7, or 8, it feels a little low to the ground, and it feels a little bit more like a linebacker than a quarterback. And I wonder if you could have had, and I know you're dealing with the height limit, so I'm sensitive to that. But if it were, and obviously this is a bigger deal because you're monkeying with room sizes, which is probably a little bit easier on the ground floor than the second floor. But it might have a little bit more of an upright character, and I think it could still have the kind of craftsman cottage that you're going for, and still that could be maybe a tweak. And this is a super minor thing, but a stylistic thing. Your double-hung windows slam together, and I think in a house where you're kind of approximating a craftsman, you'd want to have 4 or 5 inches of trim so that the windows feel a little bit more like a window group than one big window. But I think it's a beautiful plan. The solar panels. I mean, that's one of those things that you can't do it, and it's when somebody was talking about where could they go, I don't know if there's. It sounds like you didn't mention net zero, but you said like almost compensating for the energy use, like. And the garage the ridge runs north-south, so that's not a great option. But if there were a way to relocate, like think about the garage differently, so that you could maybe put some of those solar panels, like think about where some of the windows on the 3rd floor of Oscar Mayer are, and I mean this might increase the cost of it, but put some of them lower to the ground in the back, where you're still going to have hopefully as much of the solar gain, but maybe not as massive a presence on the south face. And then I agree with dormers. It sounds like you're not building out. You're not trying to finish the attic, but some relief in the roof line, as has been brought up, would probably fit the house without breaking the bank, and actually sets you up to use the space better down the road. Those are my comments. Yeah.
I'd want to echo all of those. I think setting it back to where the Oscar Mayer Mansion is and north is going to help a lot. Articulating the side facades, giving them a little bit of personality and texture will make it feel more fit in. I know that you said it was just the north that you were emphasizing, but I think both sides. Just the south.
If you move it to the south, it becomes a little bit more.
Right. But I think both sides, both the north and the south facade, just need a little bit more, just as he said, relief in both the roof and the side of the house. I don't know whether changing up the second floor could help with having vertical siding versus horizontal, maybe. That's still quite two-dimensional, whereas I think that what we're hearing is that it needs to have a little bit more sort of shape to it, I think. In any case, those were the comments that I brought. I am neutral on the standing seam roof. My gut says that if people from the 18th century had standing seam roof option, they would have done it. So kind of,
they did.
Yeah.
All the barns.
Yeah. It's yeah. So it kind of it makes sense to me to have a standing seam roof in this particular cottagey type of home from a not necessarily in this particular block, but this particular type of style has that continues the logic of the architecture to have a standing seam roof.
I think that the color of it may really help to mute it quite a bit.
So we cannot, we do not have jurisdiction here in this commission on color.
Oh, I'm just understanding.
Yeah, but the color will help. So those are my thoughts.
Oh, last one on the windows. Trim between the double hungs, and then it looks like it's kind of picture frame at the bottom, whereas craftsman, it seems like you'd want to see a sill and then an apron on the outside. Or just a little bit more texture. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with Tom. I think in terms of the way people want to live in and what they want the quality of light and spaces are, you see more windows gang together. The reason that you saw trim between double hung windows in traditional houses was the double hung windows always came with weight pockets. So when you put two of those things together, you've got anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of trim between the windows. Contemporary windows are made in a very different way. There's no such thing as a weight pocket on the double hung, which allows you to take the frames of the windows and directly connect them. Granted, it produces something that looks different from a house built before 1960, but this is in fact in some ways a contemporary house, although it is paying a lot of homage to houses in the neighborhood and traditional houses in what I think is a nice way. But I'm not disturbed by gang windows together.
It is, that isn't, it's more of a product of its time, a 21st century house that's paying homage to all the other traditional houses on the block. And like you said, change in technology obviously changes